Hello, UC. Welcome to From J to Z, UC's late night sports talk radio show. I'm Zach Parker.
And I'm Justin Bird.
Tonight we're going to be covering all major sports, professional and collegiate, giving you our know-how on current sports topics. First up, some headlines from the weekend. In college basketball, number 1 Villanova beat St. John's to go 22-3 on the season. Lots of upsets this weekend. Justin, go ahead.
To start off, unranked Wisconsin upset number 2 Maryland after leading 15 points at halftime. Kansas beat Buddy Hield and number 3 Oklahoma for the second time this season as Kansas guard Devontae Graham led with a career-high 27 points.
Unranked Duke may be headed back into the top 25 after upsetting number 7 Virginia Saturday night, and Stanford knocked off number 11 Oregon 76-72 Saturday as well.
Notre Dame beat 13 Louisville 71-66, and LSU defeated 15 Texas A&M 76-71, as this is Texas A&M's third loss in a row, knocking them out of the top 25, while Ben Simmons posted his 17th double-double of the season.
Some more upsets. Michigan knocked off number 18 Purdue. Texas Tech toppled number 21 Baylor. And Northern Iowa upset number 25 Wichita State to knock them out of the top 25 to round out another crazy weekend in college basketball. Moving on to the All-Star Weekend, Timberwolves rookie Karl Anthony Towns won the Skills Challenge after barely edging out Celtics guard Isaiah Thomas.
A good shootout between teammates in the three-point contest left Klay Thompson making his final 5 shots to defeat Steph Curry in the three-point contest 27-23.
And the NBA West All-Stars scored a record 196 points to beat the East All-Stars in Kobe Bryant's final All-Star appearance. However, the East leads the all-time series 37-29. We'll take a quick music break. When we come back, we'll discuss Peyton Manning's possible retirement from the game and who we think would win maybe the greatest NBA matchup of all time. We'll be right back.
The hour of our glasses stay. Let ashes be the same. Let a minute pose the pendulum self-righteous suicide. I cry when angels deserve to die. Wake up! Grab brush and put a little makeup. I just got to fade away. Why'd you leave the keys upon the table? Quit another fable. You wanted to. Grab a brush and put a little makeup. You wanted to. I just got to fade away the shake-up. You wanted to. Why'd you leave the keys upon the table? You wanted to. Well, I don't think you trust in my self-righteous suicide. I cry when angels deserve to die. In my self-righteous suicide, I cry when angels deserve to die. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Father, into your hands, why have you forsaken me? In your eyes, forsaken me. In your thoughts, forsaken me. In your heart, forsaken me. Oh, trust in my self-righteous suicide. I cry when angels deserve to die. In my self-righteous suicide, I cry when angels deserve to die.
Alrighty, we are back on From J to Z. First up, going to be talking about Peyton's possible retirement from the NFL. Justin, do you think he should go?
Absolutely.
Why's that?
There's no better way to end your career than winning the Super Bowl. He could. The only thing that could cap that is if he came back and won it again. But the odds of doing that are so minuscule that he should retire while he's still on top.
Yeah, especially with his playoff performance as spotty as he normally is in the playoffs. I don't see any reason why he should come back. I don't know why he's hesitating. Jerome Bettis in his post-game interview called his career. I was more or less expecting that from Peyton, not a plug for Budweiser and a hug for his kid. I don't see any better way to walk out, like you said.
Well, if and when he does retire, if the Broncos were smart, they'd hire him on as a coach to mentor Osweiler because he's going to be good.
Well,
he led them to wins while Peyton was out. So.
Right. He put Peyton in the position to get the Super Bowl. I don't think Osweiler gets enough credit for that. He's actually on the trading block, though. I know there's a few teams. The Niners are looking into him. There's a couple other teams. Washington, I think, was even looking into him. Even if Peyton stays, I don't see the Broncos getting rid of Osweiler. I think he earned that starting job.
Well, he being under Peyton Manning, you learn a lot from one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game.
Yeah, he proved it too. I think he lost one game in all those starts, and
right.
They were all close. He wasn't elite by any means, but he's not supposed to be. He got the wins.
To follow in the shadow of Peyton Manning and still be able to win games and put him in the spot that they are.
Yeah.
He's going to be good.
Yeah, he didn't get nearly enough credit as Peyton kind of walked in and took over, and I don't think there was a chance Brock would have won the Super Bowl, but I also didn't think there was a chance the Broncos were going to win the Super Bowl either. So, kind of speaking of if Peyton's going to say, you said Denver should bring him back on as a coach, but there's actually some talk out there that he might be headed to St. Louis, possibly as a player.
LA now.
Well, yeah, I guess it would be the LA Rams now. possibly heading out to Los Angeles. I mean, do you think there's any shot of that?
I honestly had no clue that was a thing. Like, I don't see why he would even consider going to L.A.
No, it doesn't make much sense why he would.
If he's not going to retire, he's going to stay with the Broncos. Like,
yeah, even if he didn't stay with the Broncos, I would say there's a chance he might go back to the Colts because Andrew Luck's coming off a rough year. I mean, Peyton's been there. I could see why they might want him back. I don't know how good he still is with their owner. I mean, I think that was kind of a rough breakup between those two.
Andrew Luck's probably their guy now. They know Peyton's definitely considering retirement. They're probably not going to waste that much energy into something that...
I don't think he's going to be a starter no matter where he goes. I'd be surprised if he came back as a player. If he went to Indy, I would maybe a second string just to have him there and to be a mentor to Luck.
I think the next place he goes, he's going to be nothing but a mentor.
Yeah. I mean, if he goes to L.A., Nick Foles, he's an experienced guy. He doesn't need a mentor, albeit it's Peyton Manning. I get that. But, you know, Nick Foles has been in the league a few years, about 6 years now. He doesn't need Peyton Manning watching his back. It just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense why you would take Peyton Manning and throw him into a brand-new scheme and put him in front of Nick Foles. Who knows what he's doing with that group? At
the end of the day, I think he's just going to retire. He's going to call it with this lawsuit out now.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what it is. Someone's suing him for.
It was there's an assault scandal that surfaced today, back from when he was playing at Tennessee in the late '90s, and there hasn't been too much that's been released. Someone is filing a lawsuit against him, and that's been all over the headlines today. Not a ton of details as far as what all that entails. Definitely something that we'll address next week here on the show as we hear a little more about what that's all about, really. So moving on from that into some NBA talk. 96 Bulls, 2016 Warriors. It's kind of been a discussion all season. Warriors are now on pace to beat the 96 Bulls all-time record. Bulls were 72-10, 96-97. Warriors are on pace to only lose 9 games, 73-9. If you were to put those two well, here, we'll start with this. Do you think the Warriors are going to beat their record?
I could see it happening. I could see it not happening. It could go either way. Regardless, they're going to have a great record.
Yep.
They're going to be one of the best teams to ever play. Yes, I could definitely see them beating it, but I'm also not surprised if they don't beat it, because that's a hard record to break. And getting towards the end of the season, they're going to be resting their best players, and with comes rest, comes losses too. So
I mean, you can go that route, but Curry sits the majority of the fourth quarters that they play, and that's I'm a huge Bulls fan, and I'm rooting against the Warriors, but I think they're going to do it. And they're just so good all the time. Like, it is so hard to catch those guys on an off night, and they're so deep that even if Curry's having an off night, I mean, Klay Thompson, he proved it last night or Saturday night. He can drain
earlier this season when Curry sat out a game, Thompson dropped 40 points.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're so deep, and Curry is the leader of the team, but he's not the only leader of the team. I mean, they're just so talented. If we were to put the 96 Bulls, 2016 Warriors at the peak of their seasons that year, who do you think wins?
Definitely the 96 Bulls.
I'm with you.
You have the best player to ever play the game. He'll be able to guard Steph Curry. Not saying he'll be able to shut him down completely, but I think he'd be able to do a better job. Wouldn't score as many points. And I don't think Steph Curry defensively would be good enough to stop MJ.
No, I don't think there's... I mean, the matchup, Curry wouldn't be on MJ. There's 7 or 8 inches size difference between those two. Klay Thompson or Draymond Green would probably be on MJ, which only hurts their case because I don't see how either one of them could at least contain Michael Jordan enough to stop that. The chemistry the 96 Bulls had, I mean, that big three, Dennis Rodman doesn't get a whole lot of love for it, but that big three was in my opinion, the best big three that was ever put out there on a court.
Well, you have, in the recent top 100 NBA players, you have Michael Jordan, number 1, and Scottie Pippen was top 30.
31 or 32,
31,
I think.
32.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Steph Curry was. I think he was in the top 30 as well.
He was right around Scottie.
I think Klay Thompson was in the top 100, but not as high. So, like you said, I think the Bulls' top 3 are better than the Warriors' top 3.
Yeah, I mean, those guys had, Warriors in a couple years. If they all stayed together, the Bulls just had a few years of really strong chemistry coming into it. Warriors have a year or two as the powerhouse, I guess, that they are right now. The Bulls were a powerhouse before the 96 season, and, I mean, they beat their own expectations, I'm sure. Just the chemistry of the Bulls, I don't see how the Warriors would be able to contain that. And the Warriors look like they're all on the same page a lot. I mean, the fast break last week, Steph Curry was running sideways across the court and behind the back, got an assist behind the back, threw it about 20 feet. Like they play so well, and they're on the same page. But I give the edge to the Bulls. I think the Bulls would win that game.
I think the Bulls would play physical enough to where the Warriors wouldn't be able to keep up.
Yeah,
Michael Jordan was an aggressive player. He'd pester you, he'd annoy you, he'd fluster you, and then he would throw you off your game.
I think Dennis Rodman took that to another level. Dennis Rodman was a real aggressive kind of. I mean, he was a dirty player. He was before people would flop all over the place. He was a really physical, down low, gonna get in your face kind of player, which would be interesting to see in today's NBA. That's a whole nother discussion. But the physicality would be a big key in that game.
I think skills-wise, it's a pretty close matchup.
Yeah.
But mentality-wise, I think that's where the Bulls win.
Yeah. I mean, your leader, even in 96, you wouldn't probably say MJ was the best player of all time. He was 8 years into his career at that point. I don't think you could say that. He already had 4 rings at that point. Steph has 1. He's coming off MVP, won the title. MJ had 4 and 3 and 4 years. He was, or 3 and 5 years, my bad. He knew how good he was. I think Steph's getting a little cocky. I think he's getting a little ahead of himself with how much he has peaked in the last couple years. But, I mean, that Bulls team knew how good they were. I don't think this Warrior team has quite figured out how good they are, at least to compete with a team like the 96 Bulls.
So, do you think the Warriors are going to win the title this year? You think Steph's going to get his second in 5 years?
I think the Warriors have the best shot at it. It is really hard to bet against San Antonio. Because even this season, when
San Antonio is only 4 games behind them,
if that.
Yeah.
I mean, San Antonio.
I think they have 9 losses right now, so they're 5 games back.
I mean, they're almost on pace. There's almost 2 teams on pace to hit the 96 Bulls record. I don't know how the Spurs keep doing it though. I going into this season, it just seems like their players just get. I mean, obviously they get older and older every year, but at some point you're like, these guys can't keep coming back, and they're having their best season since Tim Duncan's been on the team.
I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that Cavaliers will be in the finals.
Yeah. With
Kyrie Irving, they had a little rough start, but now that Kyrie Irving's back, they're a force to be reckoned with.
I would agree. I think the Bulls had a shot at it. Jimmy Butler's out 3 to 4 weeks now. The Bulls may be going to grab a 7-8 seed.
The Bulls were in second, and they just keep dropping.
They keep dropping. Jimmy's hurt. I think the Bulls postseason, they'll probably get the 7 or 8 seed. I think their final shot's out. I don't think the Raptors.
Derrick Rose isn't good enough to be.
Yeah, he's not elite. He's maybe a few years ago if you put him with Jimmy Butler, but that's a whole nother topic too. I mean, how disappointing Derrick Rose has been for Chicago, but he's doing well as a support man this year for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's definitely taking control of that team with Pau Gasol and the veteran leadership. But yeah, I don't see them coming back. I agree with you. I think Cavs are probably going to win the East.
But back on topic, 96 Bulls over 2016 Warriors. Close game?
last week I was thinking about this, and I'm thinking, the Bulls just were so good for so many years. I would probably give it a 10-point game, 12-point game to the Bulls. Just watching some of the highlights from the Warriors the last couple of games heading into the All-Star break, and then their top two guys just draining threes like it. I mean, obviously no one's in your face. It's wide open, but just the talent. I give it to the Bulls. It's a one-possession game.
I think it's a very close game to a point. Like I said earlier, I think the Bulls would be able to wear out Warriors' mentality, mental-wise. So I think towards the end, the Bulls would start pulling away, and you'd start to be able to tell that the Warriors were, like, just getting tired from the wear and tear and the aggressive play of the Bulls.
Yeah, I agree. Edge to the Bulls. There's still plenty of season for the Warriors, and obviously plenty of seasons to see where that team goes. I mean, they could very well, in 10 years we could talk about, people comparing future teams to the 2016 Warriors. You don't know. Moving on, staying with the NBA, All-Star Weekend this weekend. No games, but a lot of cool sights, a lot of cool highlight reel footage from this weekend. What surprised you from this weekend?
The biggest surprise to me was the dunk contest. That last round, I believe, went into 3 or 4 overtimes. The two dunkers, Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine, just kept throwing down monstrous dunks. And I think Aaron Gordon said towards the end that they were just running out of creativity, and it came down to just who could gut it out and make the best dunk. And Zach LaVine obviously won, second in a row. Good for him, but that's what surprised me the most, just those two dunkers just being able to keep going at it and consistently putting up outstanding dunks.
You say outstanding. The thing that frustrates me, it seems like every year, and it might be, Aaron Gordon might be right, it just drained on creativity, but Zach LaVine's dunk from the free throw line
Twice.
You see that every year, and it's a different guy. It stops being impressive to me. The spectacle of it just isn't there for me anymore, because it seems like so many guys do it. We see it every year, and you still get 50s for it. I get it's impressive, skills-wise, it's not easy to do that, but you're more watching the dunk contest to see crazy dunks. I don't think that's a crazy dunk.
I think it's more of a tribute to the legend, Michael Jordan. Yes, it's getting away from impressive, but it's still pretty impressive.
Talent, skill-wise, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of guys in the NBA that could do that. I get, from a skills perspective, it's really impressive. From this, wanting to watch the dunk contest.
The creativity of it is what
I think that's what makes it, fun to watch, is to see what can these guys do with the basketballs and how high are they going to get. To me, when you dunk from the free throw line, you can put it on, under your legs, but it just, I don't know, it loses some of the appeal after watching it for 4 seasons.
So we had Will Barnett, Andre Drummond, Aaron Gordon, and Zach LaVine.
Yep.
Could you tell me what teams they were on?
Zach LaVine, I only knew because he won last year. I know he was Timberwolves. Aaron Gordon, I didn't know until this weekend, was the Magic. Drummond, I knew Drummond. He was the only name I knew going into it, other than LaVine, only because he won. Last year, I had no idea who any of the guys were. Drummond obviously is having a really good year for Detroit. He was my pick to win. He was kind of disappointing. I thought he was gonna kill it just because he's had a really good season. And the fourth guy, don't know the name, don't know the team. I have no idea who he is.
He plays for the Nuggets.
Of course he does.
But anyways, do you think there should be bigger names in the dunk contest?
Yes. Some of the greatest dunk contests, I mean, we weren't around, but you go to when they were first getting it going, you had Dr. J, you had Michael. Going into the 2000s, Vince Carter was the most entertaining guy to watch dunk a basketball, probably ever. I mean, just what he could do. Dwight Howard was there for a couple years. He had a couple really famous dunks over the Kia.
Blake
Superman,
Griffin.
Blake Griffin over the Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard, Superman.
That was a fun pair to watch. Both big names.
And Dwight Howard dunked on like a 12-foot rim one year.
Yeah, put the Superman cape on. Raised it up to 12 feet. That's fun to watch because those guys. You throw the 4 guys in from this year. Drummond's had a pretty big year, so he gets a lot of publicity.
Last year was the same way.
Last year was a
big
joke.
Names.
I mean, Zach LaVine only came back because he won last year. I feel like more of the big name guys should feel obligated to do something like this because it's a weekend for fun for the NBA, and I think it's a weekend for a lot of good publicity for the NBA. If you're telling me those 4 guys are playing, I don't know who a single one is. I don't care if I see it.
So why do you think it is that there's big names in the 3-point contest but not big names in the dunk contest? Do you think there's an injury?
I think
the risk
the risk of injury in the dunk contest prevents some people. I get that. I think, you're playing for the NBA. All-Star Weekend's a big event for the NBA. Short of the finals, probably the biggest event.
But you could get just as hurt in the dunk contest as you could in the All-Star game.
Oh, with some of the, the All-Star game is hardly taken seriously anymore. Throwing a ball up off the backboard, you come down from a dunk, you could pull. Paul George could have, snapped his leg again last night.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where it was. It could have happened anywhere. It could have happened to any player.
Them dunking in the All-Star game has the same risk of them dunking in a dunk contest. It's not as repetitive, but
it's true.
What's the difference in risk there?
If you think you're going to tear your ACL, don't do that dunk. They do dunks in normal games all the time. It's, take a calculated risk. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, you think your, $30 million career is on the line, don't do it.
So who are the 4 people you'd like to see in the dunk contest?
I want to see LeBron.
Like modern right now.
I want to see LeBron do it. He's never done it. He's, in that NBA rank we were talking about earlier, he was ranked number 3 of all time. MJ did it. He was number 1 of all time. Dr. J was top 20. He did it. I want to see LeBron do it. He's never done that. He's never even done 3-point. I think you got to put LeBron in there. Current talent,
Dwight Howard would probably go again.
Dwight Howard would be fun to watch. Maybe Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook.
I could see Russell Westbrook because he's a smaller guy. He brings some
kind of the Nate Robinson almost from a few years ago. Everyone's got a few inches on Nate Robinson, but that was fun to watch. You didn't really know who Nate Robinson was. He kind of made his name.
You knew he was short, and you knew he could jump higher than anyone else.
Exactly. He kind of made his career almost.
He won twice, and he's 5'8".
Yeah. I mean, it's but that was fun. You bring a guy like the 4 this year, they're really pretty average players. They're, Nate Robinson was short. That made it interesting to see can he hang with these guys. He did. He won. LeBron would be up there, Dwight Howard, Russell Westbrook, maybe Blake Griffin. He's obviously hurt right now. I would bring him back. That him and Dwight were fun to watch. That would probably be my preferred 4 if I was going to sit down and watch it. That would be really fun to watch.
I agree.
So obviously the All-Star game really has no weight. It was 196 to I think 172. Defense just not even present at all. Just how many points can you score? A lot of points were
just
scored.
Throwing up threes.
Right. I mean, there are a lot of...
Paul George had 9 threes. Russell Westbrook had, I believe, 5 threes. Russell Westbrook's not even a shooter.
Yeah.
And he had second most threes in the game.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's just take the shots that you want. If you make it, cool. If not,
run down the other end and let them score and run back and shoot again.
It doesn't matter. Like it has no weight. And it doesn't quite get as much flack as the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl in the NFL has exactly as much weight as the All-Star game.
Well, the Pro Bowl is different because at the Pro Bowl you have wide receivers playing DB, you have DBs playing running back. But
that wasn't originally what it was. It's become that, and it's become a joke.
I think that's why it's less serious now, because you have all these unrealistic scenarios happening.
Yeah.
Like, I understand it's for fun for the players because they don't get to do that very often, but I don't know.
So the only All-Star game in the major sports is the MLB, at least, that has any sort of weight to who wins and who loses.
Right.
Obviously, that whoever wins the MLB game, that league will get home court advantage in the World Series. Do you think the All-Star game in the NBA should decide home court in the finals?
If you ask a fan, I would say yes. If you ask like these players and people who go to the All-Star game and people who make money from the All-Star game, I would say no, because if that scenario were to happen, the game would be more serious. They would actually play. It wouldn't be for fun. People wouldn't have as much fun going to it. It wouldn't be a shootout. No one would put up 196 points to 172 points. So I think business-wise, it would lose money because I don't think fans would be as interested. It would just be another serious game instead of everyone going out to the All-Star break and having some fun and watching a high-scoring game.
I could see how it could make fans actually more interested, because if you're a Warriors fan right now, you know they're going to get home court in the finals. Unless the All-Star game actually means something, East wins, now the best team in NBA, maybe NBA history, doesn't get home court in the finals, what can they do with that?
But do you think these big names would play in the All-Star game if it was serious? Do you think they would, again, go back to an injury risk? Do you think they would risk an injury playing in a serious game?
I don't see how it's any different than the MLB game. I get, you can make the argument for football, and I get that. Those guys know the risk that they take when they walk on the field. It's the same with every major sport. Baseball injuries happen, it's just completely accidental. You could be rounding a base, break your ankle, tear your ACL, collisions at the plate. I mean, you name it, it could happen. Same way in the NBA, same way in the NFL. Injuries can happen. That's what you get paid so much for. That's part of what you get paid so much for. It doesn't seem to affect the MLB players at all, because it gives them incentive to go out there. They want to play, because if their team has a potential halfway through the season to make a push to get to the playoffs, they want that shot. They want to go out there, prove themselves, and make sure that they secure home field for their team should they be in the World Series. I think it should be that way in every major sport.
So looking at the starting lineups from the NBA All-Star game,
yeah,
if the game was taken seriously, who do you think would win?
I still think the West would have won this year.
Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Kobe Bryant, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry for Western Conference.
Honestly, the reserves, I think, for the West probably could have beaten the East. I mean, that was just with
a lineup with LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and Paul George, arguably top 5 small forwards in the game right now. That's 3 of them on the East.
I think Carmelo's a little overrated.
I think he's underrated. I think he's also been with the Knicks. So
before the Knicks, he was with the Nuggets, and the Nuggets suck. I mean, they're just not going anywhere. The Knicks, they've got potential because Porzingis looks like he's going to be a monster.
Porzingis is their next franchise player right there.
Yeah, and but they're still a 500 team. They're not really doing anything this season.
And you also
either.
have Paul George, who's having a great year coming off that injury.
But the Pacers really aren't doing anything either. LeBron's the only one who really has a team around him. And let's be honest, the East, quality-wise, again, for the 10th year in a row, is nowhere close to the West.
I agree the Western Conference would take that if it was a serious game.
Yeah. So, if you're the Warriors fan in that hypothetical, you're probably still good because,
Just some comparisons from the bench. Anthony Davis, LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMarcus Cousins, Draymond Green, Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, James Harden. That's Western, Eastern, Paul Millsap, Andre Drummond, Pau Gasol, Isaiah Thomas, John Wall.
There's hardly any depth. I mean, not that those players aren't good.
But not compared to what the West has going on right now.
Exactly. The West has a second starting lineup.
Right.
The East has a bench.
Anthony Davis speaks for himself. I don't know how he didn't get into the starting lineup.
Well, I think when you put Kobe in there. Kobe was in there because it's his last season, so he's going to get the start. He should be. He's not having an all-star season. He was in there because he's one of the best of all time.
Definitely.
I have no problem with him being in there. I think, Anthony Davis kind of got ousted because Kobe
I don't think Anthony Davis would be mad about it, though.
No, I don't think you can be.
There's so much respect for a player like Kobe that you would happily take the back burner for one more year.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really had a problem, especially because there is no weight to the game. It doesn't mean too much. I think not that it doesn't mean too much to the guys. I agree. I don't think it means too much to Anthony Davis to take a seat to Kobe Bryant. I don't think that's not a slap in the face to anybody. It's Kobe Bryant. Coming out of this weekend, who do you think has the most to prove? If there is a team that has something to prove that didn't in the first half.
I would say the team that has the most to prove is the team that will end up second in the East Conference.
Okay.
The Western Conference is mapped out already.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Spurs or the Warriors. Is there a team that can challenge the Cavaliers? Is there a team that can make the East Coast look better?
I agree. The second team, I don't think any team in the West has anything to prove. They've proven, especially those top two teams. Sorry to teams 3 through 8, but you've got a crapshoot at doing anything in the playoffs.
So we have the Raptors. Cavaliers are first, obviously. Raptors second, Celtics third, Hawks fourth. 3 good teams, but can they become elite teams in the second half to give the Cavaliers a push?
Celtics, I would normally say no. I don't think the Raptors are. The Raptors are solid. I don't think they're a legitimate finals threat, especially from an experience factor. It's hard to go against LeBron because he's been there, 5 or 6 times? 6 times, I think. It's hard to go against LeBron and his teams. The Celtics, pretty young team. Just coming out today, there's news that Dwight Howard, the Rockets are shopping Dwight Howard right now. One of the projected top landing spots for him is the Celtics. If the Celtics, you've got Isaiah Thomas, he's having a great year. They've got some core young guys. You get a guy like Dwight Howard on that team, I think that's a legitimate East threat. I think that's a team that could actually face Cleveland in a series to go to the finals.
And you also have the Heat. Dwayne Wade's having a really good year this year.
Yeah, the Heat is a legitimate team too.
Sitting in 6th. Paul George, they could start coming back. Chicago Bulls, I don't see it. They're falling steadily.
Unfortunately not.
But yeah, I'd say the team that can end up in second place for the Eastern Conference is the team that I think should be on the radar for having a good second half.
Yeah, I almost feel like the Cavs have a lot to prove because
they went back in the finals against the Warriors. LeBron James wants to win a title.
Yeah,
at Cleveland.
LeBron was that team in the finals last year.
Now Kyrie, they didn't have Irving or Love.
Exactly. So current Cavs team.
We'll look at the matchup there. If they play the Warriors, it's going to be Irving versus Curry. LeBron versus Thompson, most likely, and Love against Green, Draymond Green. Those are good matchups.
That would be a lot of fun to watch.
LeBron's got the size.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving's pretty decent at defense, has good ball handling, good passing skills. And I think Love offensively is better than Green, and Green defensively is better than Love. So I think they have the big threes of those two teams have pretty even matchups, healthy.
Yeah, I think Draymond Green, as a player, I'd rather have him on my team than Kevin Love. It's not even really close for me. Dude puts up a triple-double. I mean, it's like him and Russell Westbrook are just, if one didn't have it one night, the other had it. I mean, they just put up triple-doubles all the time.
I think if those two are in the finals again, it's going to be a lot different than it was last year. It's going to be a lot closer.
I think it will.
Possibly even Game 7.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think the Cavs have a lot to prove, because of how David Blatt went out, and they have gotten kind of hot with the new coach. I didn't like how Blatt went out. I get
4
that
games and he got named coach for the East All-Star team.
Yeah, which is like how, I don't know who else you pick, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
I mean, a lot of the coaches are in their first couple seasons of coaches of the good teams anyway, which there's not a whole lot of in the East. So I don't know. If you default, you might just go, yeah, coach of the number 1 seed team. He wasn't head coach, but for most of the season he wasn't head coach. He was still a part of the team.
As soon as he got into head coach,
they did turn it up. They've kind of gotten hot. I think they've got a lot to prove. No one in the West has anything to prove. The Warriors and Spurs are so hot right now. You think they stay on track? Their current track anyway?
yes, until they start. They have to start resting their players though when it gets closer. But when you get to that point, it doesn't even matter if you lose a few games because they both have locked first, second seed.
Yeah.
So, yes, they'll stay on track, not counting when they rest their players because they have to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, I think they'll stay on track. I think the Warriors are going to lose a few more games this half. I think that's just how it's going to go.
More than 4?
Yeah, a few more than 4 or 5. Yeah. They're going to lose 5 games this half. But I think it's just hard to keep up play like they've been playing for 82 games a whole season.
Yeah, they played the Bulls, Cavs, Spurs, beat them all by it was all 3 were 30-point games
in 1 week.
Yeah, and to be fair, Spurs didn't have Tim Duncan. Is Tim Duncan going to create 30-point change in a game? Absolutely not. Is he going to make it a lot more competitive? Yeah, Warriors are still going to win the game. I don't think they can keep that up. I just don't see how you can beat, because the Bulls were, I think they were number 2 in the East at that point.
Yeah,
they hadn't tanked yet. I don't think you can keep that up. But I mean, I don't think anybody thought they'd be sitting with 4 losses. So, I mean, you can't. It's hard to tell. I think it's really hard to tell. You have no idea.
It's going to be a very competitive second half.
It will be. Alrighty, we're going to take another quick music break. We'll see you in 8.5 minutes to talk about some baseball. Be right back. Alrighty, we are back on From J to Z. Right now, you're listening to Bearcast Media, coming at you live from Jack and Jones Trader Studio, part of the electronic media division of CCM. Shout out to our sponsor, Mio's Pizza, up on Short Vine, also one in Hyde Park. So, this past weekend actually, teams reported for spring training for MLB. Early World Series, way too early to call this, but Vegas did it for us anyway. Early odds for the 2016 World Series. My boys, the Chicago Cubs, current favorites to win the World Series, 7-1 odds. Right behind them at 8-1, kind of surprising, the Red Sox. Giants,
Red
Astros,
Sox are
Mets.
always either good or really bad, so
That's true.
It's a year to be good for them.
You know, they keep going from almost elite to just absolute crap. So this is an elite year. Last year was a crap year.
David Ortiz's farewell season too.
Yeah, maybe we see a little bit of Peyton Manning magic happen over in Boston. Giants, Astros, Mets round out the top 5 odds to win the whole thing. NLCS, if you're going by Vegas odds, it was a rematch for a while. Just last couple weeks ago, Giants overtook the Mets for that second spot. It's supposed to be Cubs-Giants in the NLCS. Not that it's worth anything. I called that about 6 weeks ago. But whatever.
Historically, it's a Giants year.
Exactly. The Giants, kind of like the Red Sox. The Giants keep 1 year they'll win the World Series. Next year they won't make the playoffs. And it's either World Series or if they make the playoffs, historically, I guess, if you're going in the last 6 years, if they make the playoffs, they're going to win the World Series, which as a Cubs fan, I'm not looking forward to. Because, Cubs don't have quite the history. No good history, actually, for about 108 years. ALCS, for a while, it was Yankees, Blue Jays, which is kind of interesting to...
Considering they're in the same...
Right, you don't often see that. Right now, as Vegas has Red Sox, Astros in the ALCS. Can't really argue with that one. I thought the Astros, they looked like they were going to make a push this year.
They were young this year. That's what...
Yeah, Correa, I mean, that dude's hot. I mean, that dude's just good.
With a little bit more experience, they're going to be an elite team.
Yeah, they've got a really good rotation. MLB.com put the Astros with the number 4 rotation, actually, with the highest probability to be elite this season. Cubs were 3, since we're talking World Series chances right now. Giants 5, Mets were number 2, Nationals were number 1. Nationals obviously last year had the expectations the Cubs have this year.
I'm surprised the Angels aren't higher up there, considering they have arguably the best player in the league right now, and Mike Trout.
Angels are about halfway down the list. They're sitting at 25-1. In case anyone's actually wondering, the Braves and the Phillies are 350-1, tied for lowest odds. So if you think some magic's going to happen in either of those two cities, go put $10 on them. You're going to win a couple thousand. As a Cubs fan, I want to say I completely agree. Cubs are going to win the World Series. It is not easy to say that, obviously, because the Cubs are the Cubs.
Being a Red Sox fan, I want to say I agree with that too.
Yeah,
I've rooted for the Cubs though.
I want the Cubs. Obviously, I want them to win it. They're building a dynasty. I think they're going to be good for a lot of years. Finally, it's when you saw Hayward and Lackey come over, it's finally a destination
Well, this
team.
is what they waited 108 years for. Was it worth the wait, you think? 108 years?
If you look at their lineup, other than maybe Miguel Montero, but this is probably his last year before Schwarber takes over at catcher permanently, because they've got, I think, 2 or 3 guys that
they also have a catcher.
They've got the number 1
minors,
catcher prospect.
Yeah,
that's their number 1, maybe their number 2 prospect right now is
Schwarber's also a great left fielder too.
He's a good left fielder. He's a great bat. He's a good left fielder unless it's the NLCS. He's a blind left fielder. you just put a guy with no arms out in left field. Schwarber was not good in the NLCS. It's his rookie season. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He was. I'm sure most of that team was battling a lot of nerves. They got swept, and the Mets really don't have a ton of experience on their team either, at least as far as getting that far into the playoffs. But I think the Cubs. I think it's the year. The only thing standing in their way is the Giants, and I only say that because the rotation. While I think the Cubs is a little better because of experience, the Giants' rotation has most of those guys have been there before, and that it's their year. If you're going by the last few, they didn't make the playoffs last year. If the pattern says this year they win the World Series.
I think Red Sox are good in second place. I think that's a good 8-1 odds. You said for the Red Sox.
Yeah, 8-1 for the Red Sox.
See, you got David Ortiz last year. He is like a god in Boston.
Yeah. He'll never pay for
Dustin
a meal in
Pedroia,
Boston.
also very good. Well, very good a few years ago. We'll see what he can do this year.
He's a solid guy. He's not, he's not a guy that I would really build my organization around. He's a guy I want on my team.
Well, what they have better this year is pitching. David Price is coming in. They have Clay Buchholz. He's decent. He's a good pitcher. They have Craig Kimbrell, a great relief pitcher.
Yeah, he's
arguably
kind
one
of
the
an
best
X
relief
factor for
pitchers.
them. Yeah.
Yes. So
he was
they
kind
have
of
the pitching.
spotty some points last season, but yeah, if he's shut down, that's a dangerous team.
They have the pitching. They have the defense and Dustin Pedroia, Hanley Ramirez.
Yep.
Xander Bogaerts at shortstop. Bogart's not a great bat, but defensively he's solid.
He's a well-rounded player. He's not going to hit 300. He's not going to hit 30 home runs. He's going to give you 270, 15 home runs. Which is a solid guy to have on the team. He's a good bat.
They have the young center fielder Mookie Betts, who's continually proving himself.
Another guy like
solid.
Bogaerts. Yeah, just a well-rounded, not spectacular, other than his speed.
I think the Red Sox have a good combination between experience and youth.
Yeah.
Along with their few star pitchers that they have.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to me, David Price, I don't think he's worth that contract. To me, he lost me in Detroit. I just don't think he's the pitcher that a lot of people make him out to be.
I agree, but coming to a team who didn't have very good pitching, I think he is a solid addition.
Oh, he's a solid addition to any. I mean, he's a solid addition to any team. He's a good pitcher. He, to me, is not worth the money. When he was with Detroit, he was a pretty average pitcher. While he was with them, 13-8 was his record with Detroit. ERA sitting right about 3, just under 3. Once he got to Toronto, let's see, he was 18-5 with Toronto. If he can repeat like that, he finished second place in Cy Young, voted an All-Star. If he can have a season like he did with Toronto, I'll give him 9-1 with Toronto. In total, in 2015, he was 18-5. He split the season between the two teams. When he was with Toronto, he was 9-1.
18-5 is a good record for a pitcher.
18-5 is a good record. He got 9 wins with each team. Detroit, didn't really live up to expectations at all. If he can play at the level like he was playing with Toronto, I'd say he's probably worth that money. I'm also a Cubs fan. I didn't think John Lester was worth the money we gave him, and he hasn't provided really at all. His offense didn't come through a lot.
I feel like once a player makes that groundbreaking big contract, they stop. There's something there. There's like a curse there where you get that big paycheck, and
there's almost not as
performance-
much incentive.
Right.
You play. That's a thing.
Either way, you're getting paid, regardless if
Right, and it's a
bad
life-changing
or-
amount of money.
Right.
Like, you're going to get paid $2 million for the season or $14 million for the season. David Price is going to get $20 to $22 million for the next 6 years.
Right.
Max Scherzer is going to get, I think, $15 million for the next 8 years because of the way he structured his deal. I think that was the best contract I've ever seen in baseball. Dude's going to be retired, sitting on his couch, and still making $15 million a year for 3 years. If he can have a season like he did with Toronto, he's worth the money.
I agree.
It's just spotty for me if he's worth that. You go back to 2014, he's 15-12, 3.26 ERA. He had a good 2015, really good 2015, but it's which David Price do you get? And I don't know if that's for the Red Sox. That's a $200 million question. I don't think he's worth that money. He's worth a lot of money. I don't think he's worth that much money. But we'll find out. It's like you said, it's the Red Sox here.
Well, they better hope the price is right.
Good one.
Going into NCAA basketball again, more in depth. Let's talk about upsets for a little bit. It's getting close to bracketology. I know some are already out. I think we have 4 or 5 games left before conference play starts.
Yep.
Do you think upsets are beneficial, or do they hurt the game?
I think it depends from what standpoint you look at it. From, if you're a fan of, Northern Iowa, your team is pretty average, not going to get into the top 25.
Well, let's think about this scenario. In the American Conference, you have SMU.
Okay.
SMU is a very good team this year, but they cannot get into the tournament,
Right.
because of last year's infractions.
Yeah.
So, should they be allowed in the conference tournament to beat UC, UConn, Houston?
Teams that can legitimately make it in.
Do you think a team like SMU should be able to upset a team that has a legitimate shot and is still playing to get into the tournament?
If the infraction says you can't take part in postseason play, which is March Madness is the postseason, then I don't think they should be allowed in conference play, because to me,
the conference play is where a team that has maybe had a shaky year. Conference tournament is where you prove yourself.
right, you earn
That's
that
where
spot.
you get in.
Yeah. To me, it's not that it's not fair, but it's really not fair. If SMU can't even make it to March Madness, why should they be allowed to play in the tournament that makes a huge, huge impact in seeding?
Right. Because UC is a last 4 in team right now.
Yeah.
If they get out early, say they play SMU first round conference tournament and they lose, they're probably going to be a last 4 out team now.
Yep.
They lost to a team that that cannot play in March Madness.
Yeah.
That's not fair for UC, who obviously we're a little biased because we go to UC. That's not fair for a team like
Pick any team,
Yeah.
though. It
it's
could
not
be
fair for that
anybody.
team who has worked hard to get into a tournament
Yeah.
when a team beats you that has no chance
Yeah,
because they broke the rules.
Yeah, I think you broke the rules. That's part of the price you pay. You could go as far as Louisville is sitting out this season, too.
Right.
And they're
Self-imposed.
13, I think, right now. They're
Just lost to Notre Dame.
right. So they're probably going to, they're probably sitting right around 20 or so.
But that's a very competitive conference.
Right.
Same
That's
scenario could happen there.
super competitive conference with a top 25 team who, could very well win that conference, but doesn't mean anything. And to the people making the brackets, how much, if Louisville or SMU, whoever it would be, if they beat a team like a UC who's a bubble team, how much do you let that factor into your decision of letting a team like UC in? Do you say, well, SMU cheated last season, but UC didn't really affect the UC game. UC still would have lost, so how much do we take that into consideration?
So, like, with Louisville, they have North Carolina, who's projected as a 2 seed. Miami, Florida, projected as a 3 seed. Virginia, I think they're a 1 seed right now.
They just got upset, so they're probably
lost.
a 2.
Louisville beats one of them early on. They might drop.
Yeah, if conference play is kind of a postseason, it's kind of hard to draw the line. Where's the post? Obviously, March Madness is the postseason. Kind of hard to draw the line with conference play if that's postseason or not. To me, it is because it completely sets the foundation, especially in a season with so many upsets. Completely sets the foundation for the seeding. That's almost what you're going to have to go off of because there's 10 upsets every week in the top 25.
So just because we live in the area, Cincinnati area, Xavier's looking pretty hot right now.
Yeah, they're sitting 9 right now, I think. They dropped from 5 to 9.
They're projected a 2 seed right now.
Projected a 2 seed, ranked number 9 in the top 25 right now. I'm very surprised that they're having the year they are. Normally they are kind of a Sweet 16, maybe make a push to the Elite 8, not a Final Four team.
They're looking really solid right now. They have quality wins. Big East, Villanova, number 1 seed.
Yep.
Number 1 seed overall and number 1 seed in the tournament.
For a couple weeks, which is unusual for number 1 seed.
Providence is ranked.
Which
Butler
is really
was ranked
surprising.
early on. They still have a little bit to prove. They're in a good conference, and they're continuing to win. Second place in the conference right now behind Villanova, who is the number 1 overall seed right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really competitive conference. Whoever comes out of that, you can make the argument, whoever comes out of that conference is the favorite to win the whole thing. But
both really good teams.
But
I kind of want to root for Xavier just because it's a local team.
Yeah,
obviously I'm never going to root for them over UC, but
yeah,
it's a local team. It'd be cool to see a local team from Cincinnati right up the road
and such a small school. There's 5,000-6,000 kids that go to Xavier. 5% of their school population's on the basketball team. I think that would be cool from that perspective because they're competing against teams that have 40,000 students going to them.
A lot more notorious for basketball in their school.
Right. But anything, there's so many upsets every week. Xavier could win the whole thing. Xavier could lose in the first round. I mean, that makes picking a bracket so difficult. But
so how do you pick a bracket with a year like this year? What upsets do you look at now? Because Kentucky was ranked first overall at the beginning of the season. They're in the 20s now. I don't think anyone expected that.
I'm gonna completely go with the last few games heading into the tournament.
I think this is where you watch conference play again. It goes back to conference play.
That makes a big difference, not necessarily in seeding, but in how you pick your bracket. I'm not gonna look at whole seasons to determine where I pick, just because there's so many upsets. You go, this team won 3 or 4 games heading into the tournament. They're kind of hot. They might do it. You could still be completely wrong because Kentucky won 37 in a row and lost.
You also have a Big Ten conference who has 1, 2, 3, 4 has 6 teams that have been ranked or are currently ranked.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell in a season like this who's going to be a player in the tournament. If you had, obviously the seeding, you can't really pick a final matchup because seeding is going to completely determine that. If you had to pick one team right now, put $100 on them, who would you pick?
I'd probably have to go with Villanova or Iowa.
Iowa looked good. They're one of their guys had a double-double and 6 blocks. They're forward.
He's up for Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. 6 blocks is impressive. Throw that with a double-double, a pretty high double-double.
I think the competitiveness in the Big Ten Conference is also going to help Iowa out if they can beat all the other competitors in the Big Ten. because that's going to be a tough conference play. So I think they'll be like battle hardened enough for March Madness come that time.
Yeah, just for what it's worth, the odds to win the tournament right now, 2 teams tied at 15-2 odds. That's the best. Right now, North Carolina and Oklahoma. Rounding out the top 5, Michigan State, Iowa, Kansas. Villanova, the current number 1 seed, is 8th right now, 14-1 odds. We talked about Xavier. They're sitting at 22-1. Kentucky, surprisingly, is number 6, 12-1 odds. They're tied with
Calipari's
Kansas.
Always dominant in March Madness.
You know, that's true. Cincinnati, 200-1 to win the whole thing.
The last 4 team.
Yeah,
they still have a lot to prove.
They have a lot to prove, and because there's a lot of Buckeyes fans, 500-1 for the Buckeyes to win the whole thing. I don't even think they're going to make the tournament.
They're not in the tournament now.
You know, they might. You know,
they'll definitely be in the NIT tournament.
Yeah, maybe decent shot to win the NIT. They're not. You know, OSU doesn't play as a 15 seed. They'll take the 2 seed in the NIT. LSU, 40-1. You know, Ben Simmons.
They're getting hot.
They're getting hot.
Rough year, rough start.
I question why Ben Simmons went to a team like LSU.
I think he went to a team like LSU expecting players to follow and expecting that team to be better than what it was. And it just didn't work out the way he wanted it to.
I almost say you can't say expect players to follow, because I think he went in knowing
he
it's
knew
one
he was
and done.
You're right. He knew he was going to be one and done. So
exactly, you know, it doesn't matter. And you know,
maybe he just wanted to go to a team where he knew a team that was decent, but a team that he knew he would, without a doubt, be the star.
Yeah, if a team that would make him look his best.
Exactly. Right.
If they went to the next level, it would be because of Ben Simmons. You go, you know, it's hard to compare. You know, Buddy Hield, he's playing against top teams, consistently in the top 5 in the ranks.
Leading in points per game. I think he's at 24 points per game right now.
I mean, Ben Simmons has, you know, 17 double-doubles on the season, which is crazy.
Averaging 16 and 12.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. But, you know, he's also playing Alabama. You know, just SEC is not a basketball conference.
Yeah.
You know,
I completely agree.
The Big 12 is not a football conference like the SEC. It is a basketball conference. You've got insane powerhouses in the Big 12. You know, 3 of the top 4 teams are in the Big 12. So, you know, it's hard to compare those players, which is really why I wonder why Ben Simmons would want to go there. He could have gone to any team he wanted. I'm pretty certain of that. And you know, I'm sure Duke would love to have Ben Simmons right now.
Duke's having a down year right now.
Yeah, especially if you're going in with the mentality of one and done. Your gut says go to Kentucky, because that's their thing.
Right.
They're the one and done school. You know, maybe he didn't just, you know, he's from Australia, so maybe it was, you know, Kentucky. Unless you're a Kentucky fan, Kentucky isn't usually a very liked team. Maybe that played a factor into it. No one really hates on LSU unless you're from Alabama.
Right.
You know, a lot of factors that could have played into that. You know, I'm sure there's a lot we don't know. But, hey, maybe we'll get him on the show next week. Who knows? Alrighty, we're going to take our, little delayed halftime break. We're going to take a little music break, come back, round off our show with some fantasy talk and the way too early analysis for the NFL season coming up.
looks like a hearse. You die to get in again. We are so far from you. Burning on, just like a matches, try to incinerate the lives of everyone you know. And what's the worst to take from every heart you break?
Alrighty, we are back from J to Z. Going to get you these last couple segments before we hit 2 o'clock. First up, going to talk a little fantasy sports. MLB season's coming up. Drafts are going to be taking place probably early next month, maybe mid next month once spring training gets underway here. Justin, if we're in a fantasy league together, we're going to be bringing that up a lot this semester, I'm sure. Who are you thinking 1, 2 overall? Who are your top guys right now?
I'll tell you only if you promise not to steal them from me.
I won't steal them from you if you don't steal mine from me.
Deal.
Okay.
I'll do my number one hitter and pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
For my hitter, I'd probably go with Mike Trout. Obviously, proven himself time and time again. Miguel Cabrera is also a good pick.
Yeah.
He wins the batting title almost every year.
Yeah.
One of those two. Pitcher, I would have to probably go with Clayton Kershaw. The only downside to that is it doesn't really affect him, but it affects the team as Greinke's gone.
Yeah.
But I'd say Kershaw is a good solid pick for pitcher.
Yeah, the only thing that would change him would maybe be mentally, because their rotation's definitely going to be weaker than it was last year. But, I mean, he did it without Greinke, too. He's Clayton Kershaw. He's really good. I'm thinking Stanton as my number one, just because, Trout, he's, from my rankings that I've kind of looked at stats and projections, I've got Stanton as my number one pick, and Trout's my number 2. So, you can't. I mean, you're not going wrong with either one. Stanton, at least,
both pretty consistent. You don't have to worry about them having a bad night more than once every few weeks.
Right. If nothing else, I think, aside from the Mets, I think Stanton's in an easier division. Well, no, not really, because you have to face the Mets rotation and the Nationals rotation. So yeah, the Angel, Trout's probably in an easier division. Stanton is. I think he's good enough to make it through a couple games against really good pitching.
Who's your pitcher?
Pitchers, the Cubs fan in me says go Arrieta.
Well,
He's not going to be able to have the second half. That was legendary, his second half last season. No one. It was actually legendary. I don't think he's going to have quite the season. He's still a really good pitcher. I'd probably go Arrieta as a second or third pick from a pitcher, not necessarily overall. Like you said, it's hard to go against Clayton Kershaw. If I had to pick, Max Scherzer's probably my guy right now, my number one pitcher right now.
If sleeper
picks,
someone that might not be taken off the board very quickly, but who you think will do
a few
fairly well.
Yeah, there's a few. Just as far as well-rounded players, AJ Pollock, who is he's an outfielder for the Diamondbacks, pretty consistent player. Not a 30 home run, 290 average, but he's like I said earlier, I was talking about Xander Bogaerts and Mookie Betts, who are also two, I think, big sleeper picks. Not necessarily your big home run hitters, your batting title guys, but that's not necessarily what you want for the long haul in a fantasy baseball season. You want a guy that's consistent and above average, and I think those three guys.
My sleeper might not technically be considered a sleeper, but I'd probably have to go with David Ortiz. Like, obviously he produces, but I think this year he's going to have an above David Ortiz average year.
Yeah.
Last year he's going to want to go out with a bang. I think he's going to produce very well this season.
Yeah, I agree. He could be considered a sleeper because he's old. Well, baseball old, and I do think there could be a little bit of magic with him. A little Peyton Manning sort of make that final push, go out on top. It's the Red Sox year. We talked about that earlier. It's a lot of teams' years.
Right.
There's, I think 3 teams that have, you could say it's their year. Yeah, he's probably the biggest name sleeper, but I would agree. He's probably a sleeper pick. He's not, a start-him everyday guy, but
right.
Coming off your bench, that's a good name to have coming off your bench. Moving into a little bit of football. If you pay any attention to sports at all, the Broncos won the Super Bowl last week. The way too early analysis for the upcoming season. Justin, who do you think wins the Super Bowl in a year?
I think it's hard to argue. Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't think they don't have any big contract expirations this year. They're probably going to pick up a few talents in free agency.
Probably no huge names, but yeah.
Defensive player of the year again.
Yeah.
Kuechly, MVP and offensive player of the year.
Yeah, they've got a really solid team.
Or I could see the Cardinals too.
The Cardinals, yes. I don't know how much longer Carson Palmer is going to have it. I mean, he just completely flopped in the championship
That's very
game.
true.
I mean, 7 picks.
Right.
I mean, it was a joke. It was, everyone except the Cards were catching his balls.
I'll probably go
it
with
wasn't
Carolina.
all on him.
I'll probably go with Carolina.
Yeah.
I think Cam Newton's a little disappointed that he didn't get his win.
Yeah.
Last week.
Definitely disappointed. I
think he's going to be very resilient and bounce back and have a great year again next year.
Yeah, he gets a lot.
I think he's in his prime right now.
He's definitely in his prime. He gets a lot of crap thrown at him because of
his enthusiasm.
Which I disagree with. I don't think that's fair. He's a young guy and he's
more having fun than showboating. And
yeah, and you know what? Say what you will about him showboating, dude's backing it up. He's the MVP of the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
By far the best offensive player in the league, right? At least this past season.
I mean, he does it. He does it all. He runs. He throws.
Yeah, he had 40 combined touchdowns in the regular season. That's. I mean, there's no one who's as much of a threat as Cam Newton is.
Right.
If the guy wants to be
he's
a little
big
cocky,
too. 6'5", 220, 6'6".
Yeah, I mean he's big. He could take down a linebacker.
He's not going down easy.
Yeah, he's a power, and you know what? If he wants to be a little cocky, hand some footballs out, do some dances, I have no problem with that because he can back it up. There's a limit.
He's just having fun.
Yeah, there's a limit. I don't think he's hit that limit, and I certainly have no problem with his comments.
He's not over the top. He does his what dance, and then that's it. He's not like doing stupid, outrageous celebrations and stuff like that.
I think it's all adequate for his performance. I see no problem with it.
But what they could use is a running back.
Yeah, which actually we'll take this into another kind of direction here. There's 2 potential really big names in free agency, both of which we've heard retirement surrounding. No one's confirmed yet. That's Calvin Johnson and Marshawn Lynch. Lynch has not come out and said he's going to retire. A lot of speculation. Calvin Johnson only told his coach it was his last season.
I think Calvin Johnson's more likely to retire than Marshawn Lynch.
Okay.
If Marshawn Lynch goes to Carolina, huge.
That's game over.
Huge.
Yeah.
A dual threat, Marshawn Lynch, Cam Newton.
I don't even
dual threat
understand.
Quarterback and a dual threat running game.
I don't even understand how you try and stop that team. The number one destination, ESPN's at least saying, for Marshawn Lynch, if he were to stay, is Dallas. That's assuming DeMarco Murray doesn't get out of Philadelphia and come back, which the whole Cowboys team wants. As far as
honestly, you could put any running back on Dallas and they would have a good year because of their offensive line.
If Tony Romo can stay healthy, Dallas is a really good team. Without Tony Romo, Dallas is hardly a team. They are garbage.
Right.
And they showed that.
Johnny Manziel's Dallas.
Yeah.
But Dallas will take anyone that could potentially make them money.
RG3's
done. His career's done.
Well,
I think his career's done.
He
had so many chances to prove himself at Washington.
him and Johnny Manziel are both have a pretty good chance of going to Dallas as a backup to Tony Romo. If Manziel is honestly alive to see the beginning of this season. Completely separate topic.
Well, do you have any underdogs for next year?
For next year, not really any underdogs. I agree with you. Carolina's probably coming out of the NFC.
What about the Bengals? You think they'll learn how to win a
playoff
game? Could you think, are they considered an underdog?
I don't think they're an underdog at this point. They've been there too many years to be an underdog. In the regular season, they're not an underdog.
That competition between Pittsburgh and the Bengals,
that's going to be fun to watch.
That is.
You know, a healthy Steelers team, I think, would have beaten the Broncos. I picked the Steelers to go to the Super Bowl.
Le'Veon Bell Steelers team?
Yeah, but that was before Antonio Brown got hurt.
Right.
Obviously, Le'Veon Bell had already been hurt come playoff time. You know, a healthy Steelers team, I think, is the best in the AFC North.
You always have to look out for the Patriots. They're always there.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere until Tom Brady leaves.
Right.
Which, who knows when that's going to happen. They're not going anywhere. It's hard to pick out of the AFC. I want to go Steelers or Chiefs. Chiefs ended on an 11-game win streak. Right. Obviously, they ended on a loss. Leading into that loss against New England, they were on an 11-game win streak. If they can bring any amount of that back, I'm not even sure if you want Jamal Charles back because they did it without him.
He had a disappointing year. I would know because he was on my fantasy team.
Yeah. Yeah, there was I had Marshawn Lynch, so I feel you. You know, I would say those two teams are probably not sleepers, but like, you know, you want to go and pick a big name like New England and say that they're going to win it, and you probably wouldn't be. I mean, you're not stupid in saying that. I would say Pittsburgh or Kansas City would both be pretty good, somewhat underdog. Maybe the Jets.
Right.
They need another weapon.
Jets turned it around this year.
They turned it around. I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Kaepernick's not going to New York. There's no reason for him to go to New York. If they can get another weapon, offensive weapon, I think the Jets maybe could even make a push for it. They have to play against New England.
They have to get past the Patriots first.
Yeah. If they can do that, you know, they'll prove themselves in the regular
season. And they
season.
need to get past the Dolphins team, who didn't have a good season, but I think they have potential and the personnel to have a good season.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen this year.
They're going to have a new coach.
Tannehill's a decent quarterback, still finding his place.
Yeah. I think they need some offensive weapons, too. You know, they've got a lot of middle-of-the-road guys to go with Tannehill. Tannehill's a pretty middle-of-the-road guy. I think he's better than middle-of-the-road. He doesn't really have too much on the offensive side working with him.
Right.
You know, Ndamukong Suh is the biggest name on that team, and he left one crappy team to go to another mediocre team. So at least he's got his money. So we'll stick with the way too early analysis. This one not nearly as too early as the NFL season, but March Madness. We talked about it a little bit. Who's the one team you think is going to win the whole thing?
Whole thing? Probably going to have to go with Iowa.
Iowa. I'm going, as hard as it is to pick, I'm going to go Kansas because I think Oklahoma is one of the better teams out there. Kansas has beaten them twice at home and on the road. With the season that the NCAA has been with all the upsets, and it's going to completely depend on who gets hot at the right time. You know, I think that's a good a pick as any to say, you know, you've beaten a top 5 team twice.
Like we said earlier, though, the way this season's going,
could be anybody.
Right.
I mean, 8 seed could win the whole thing. You have no idea. Everyone is getting upset. Rankings, seriously, this season mean nothing more than any season I can remember making brackets. There's no dominant. There's no Kentucky. There's no Louisville of 2012. It's completely up for grabs, which I guess is good for teams like Cincinnati or
right.
These not smaller schools but more bubble or can they do anything teams. So that'll make it interesting for those fans. I think it's good for the fans.
It's fun. It's more enjoyable.
It definitely is a lot more enjoyable. So we're gonna go into a quick segment called Omaha. Omaha is inspired by Peyton Manning. Justin, you came up with the name. Give us a little bit of background on this one.
So, Omaha, obviously Peyton Manning says it, means nothing. Just a word he says, just to maybe get the defense's mind wandering. So this segment is a segment for sports or stories that have no meaning to the normal sports fan. Just an obscure sports story that is entertaining or fun to listen to.
Alrighty, so let's get right to the story. The Omaha story of the week. Jeffrey Donenfeld, a U.S. tourist in China, attempted to speed sled the Great Wall of China last week for some reason or another. As he was being flagged by workers along the way who tried to warn him to slow down, he decided to ignore them and ended up crashing near the chairlift at a high rate of speed. His whole journey was captured on his GoPro that was attached to his chest. As the video ends, he crashes pretty violently. Doesn't appear to be injured, kind of laughs it off. If you want to see that whole video, check it out at upi.com. So for us tonight, that's going to be it. We'll see you back here on Bearcast Media next Monday at midnight, taking you from J to Z and everything sports.
Until next time, Cincinnati, good night.